Hi, this is the Social Gelo with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gelo with Angelo show.
What's up, and welcome to Social Gelo with Angelo. I am here with Tim Bruce. And Tim Bruce, you're a black belt in Kajukenbo, man?
Correct.
Right? Yeah, he's a black belt in Kajukenbo. Where are you coming out of, brother?
Arkansas is where I train in,
Oh,
but
Arkansas.
I got most of my training done in for Kajukenbo in Rhode Island.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. And what's the name of the school you're running?
Oh, combatives.
All right, cool. Do you have like an Instagram or anything like that?
Facebook. You can see us on combatives on Facebook.
All right, there you go. That's where you can find him. So Tim reached out to me. We're part of the Kajukenbo, the Pit Kajukenbo Ohana. If you haven't checked it out, it's a page open to all martial artists, predominantly Kajukenbo right now, and a few Kempo guys are coming in. But it is open to everyone who practices or is interested in martial arts. Hence the Ohana part, the meaning family in Hawaiian. If this is your first episode, I urge you to just Google real quick Kajukenbo, and that way you kind of have an idea of all the shit I'm about to start talking about, and you won't be completely lost. At the end of this episode and every episode, there's a What is Kajukenbo podcast that I did with John Hackelman and Ron Esteller, also Kajukenbo black belts, and they know their stuff. So if you want to know a little bit about that, that'll be at the end of the show. But as you saw in the title of this video, now me and Tim were throwing back. I'm really bad at marketing, so me and Tim were like going back and forth on some possible titles. So I don't know what the end of it was. He recommended, should kids participate in combat sports? And I wanted to be a little more controversial and say, should kids fight in combat sports? And I think that's going to end up being the title. Should kids fight? Because I want people to cause controversy. Otherwise, you all won't watch my videos. I really wish I could be less controversial.
It needs to be controversial.
Yeah. I don't think it needs to be, but either way, it does. For people to want to watch it, they got to get a little mad. And for those of you that actually jumped and are watching this and are now commenting on YouTube, you want to answer the question, press pause, answer the question on YouTube. Thank you so much. And for those other people that aren't even watching this video and are already just arguing on Facebook, Jesus, I don't know what to do with you people. All right. So either way, so right off the bat, some of the things me and Tim were talking about, I guess we're going to break this down into a few sections. When we talk about combat sports, what do you think we're talking about? I know what I think I'm talking about. What do you think we're talking about? We're talking about combat sports.
I'm usually coming from the idea of kickboxing, MMA, and grappling, either catch wrestling or jiu-jitsu. So some form of competition in those matters.
And I'm coming from the same perspective. Like any type of sport that involves violent contact between two individuals is how I got that psychology background. So I always want to break that down into a definition that that even a non-martial artist might be able to keep up with. So any type of sport where two people are hitting each other for whatever reason, for however amount. I don't want to go into a long spiel of the differences between point sparring and the rules and stuff. I've already done other podcasts on that, and I encourage my listeners to check that out. But so yeah, what are to get ready for something like that? Let's make this a little more personal. In your school, what age ranges do you teach?
So I start at 6, and for the kids class it goes 6 to 12, and I have them start sparring 3-4 months after they start training.
Okay.
And it usually starts with shadow sparring, no contact, just footwork, learning how to move your head properly, get used to the concept of sparring and the spacing. And then they eventually graduate to headgear, mouthguard, gloves, MMA 4-ounce gloves, or they're about 2-ounce gloves for the youngins, and then shin guards. And they start at about 5-10%, and we always give them the spiel. You're not trying to knock out your teammates, you're trying to train. But, if someone gets hit in the head and they didn't like it, but it's not a harmful attack, it was just a little jab to the face, we don't stop the match. We let them keep playing around.
And with that in mind, for your school, what are your kids competing in?
It's hard to find anything for these kids to compete in, right? So right now I'm trying to get them a kickboxing event set up with just another local Kempo gym. But it's been hard to find them to compete in anything because the only thing that we have in our area is either point contest or jiu-jitsu only. And my kids, they're not dedicated jiu-jitsu kids, and they're not dedicated kickboxing kids. They train a little bit of everything, the Kajukenbo. And I wanted to be able to find something where we could find a nice, like a Kubo, where it's a little bit of both that these kids can compete in. But we just don't have it in this area. So I'm trying to actually start something like that up. But for the most part, in our gym, we have nights we come in here and it's just kickboxing. Nights we have it's just boxing for them. Sometimes just jujitsu, and sometimes it's MMA rules.
So pretty much in your area for competition, it sounds like there's only point sparring and jujitsu. Is that
Jiu-jitsu,
okay?
correct.
And then for those of you that don't know what point sparring is, it's pretty much very minimal contact. It's kind of like Olympic Taekwondo. If you haven't even watched the Olympic Taekwondo rules, very, very, very sometimes no, especially for the kids, they'll allow no striking to the face, and for some reason still kicks. You can kick
Yeah,
to the head, but
that's
you can't
so
punch
much
them in
nicer.
the face because we all know how a kick to the head is so much less contact than a jab. But either way, I'm not gonna go there again. I'm not gonna go there.
It's just
Yeah,
it's the same thing with the Kyokushin. Like every
yeah,
once in a while, we
no,
do the Kyokushin
oh
boxing,
geez, yeah.
and yeah, okay, you're not blocking your head even more so from the shin kick going to your head.
Don't you get like so? Okay, I gotta go. So I'm in Japan, right? And they have Kyokushin out here, and I tried
Mhm.
it out, and I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, and big shout out to the Kyokushin Ohana that let me train with him. But one of my biggest criticisms when I was going in there was I did enjoy the contact. I feel like they do have very good training. Like as far as like conditioning training, by far, hands down, some of the best conditioning training. Like a lot of the stuff that they talk about in karate, where they talk about the Magiwara boards and all that stuff, that's coming from Kyokushin. All that kicking wood and all that stuff and taking hits,
Yeah, and they're actually doing it.
blocking.
They're
Yeah,
not
and
just talking about it, they're actually doing it.
they're
They're
doing it.
conditioning their
They
bodies.
they are. They're definitely there's hands down. They are conditioning their bodies to take full contact strikes. They are doing that. Whether it's beneficial or not, the way they're doing that is different. That's a different question altogether. But they are doing that. They are tough guys. Um, but the thing that I found the strangest was the no punching to the face, and one of the biggest at the end weaknesses for them was okay, I'll cross train with you. I can easily grab what I know and say, okay, I'm not going to punch you in the face. That's pretty because of competing in point sparring when I didn't want to, mostly because my instructor was begging me to when I was coming up in the ranks. I do know how to do point sparring. It's part of the repertoire as a good black belt. You got to know how to teach as a Kajukenbo guy. You got to be able to teach that acronym to your students and help them compete in those specific styles if that's what they want to do. But so I was able to hang with them, and train with them and spar with them. But then when it came time to flip that and say, okay, guys, now let's try what I do, there was a lot of dismay and a lot of complaining about not even getting punched to the face. Like some of the guys were getting mad that I was stopping my punches to their face. They're like, you punched me in the face.
Just making them flinch
I'm like,
for it,
I'm
yeah.
like, no, I stopped it, man. You didn't get hit. And he's like, no, I don't. I want to do it, but I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to do what you're doing, but I don't want to do what you're doing. Was the end takeaway. All right, sorry everyone. Back to I had to say it. Going back though to your little dilemma of where can a Kajukenbo kid compete in your area? Here in Japan, they actually do have full contact Muay Thai kickboxing matches for children.
Yep.
Now, for me personally, so my daughter asked me, she's like, "Do you want me to do this?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't. I never. If you want to do it, if you personally tell me I want to do it, I'll let you do it. I'll let you compete in a full contact Muay Thai kickboxing match when you are an adult. I don't want to see you going in there as a child doing a full contact Muay Thai kickboxing match for many reasons. Um, the first reason was, well, of course, right now with the whole with football for people who are martial arts fans, right now we're looking at football. There's all this new research coming out with brain damage, right? Like I
And all
think
that.
that's like it's something crazy. I don't know what the numbers are, and I don't feel like googling it right now. But I know it was well over 60% of retired football players that played football, not even professionally, like just played for I think it was like 5 to 10 years period. They're looking at
Yep.
them and they're finding brain damage in like a high number, over 60%, which is really big in statistics.
Yep.
So thinking about that in Muay Thai kickboxing, you are going to get hit full contact in the head. Like you just said, when you're training, we try to keep it at 10%. We try to keep it controlled where you are not getting any brain damage, because we're all very concerned. Because especially if you're going to become a professional fighter, if you get hurt, I always say, if you get hurt in your training, then your training isn't helping, because you're taking a step back, a step forward.
Yep.
So I told my daughter that she's 7, and she's like, "Do you want me to compete in this?" Because I had some other teenagers and they were begging me to compete, and I urged them not to. And the mother and all 3 of them, no, this is what we really want to do. And I said, "But you guys say you want to be professional fighters, right?" Like, "Yeah, we want to be professional fighters." And like, then my advice to you is train hard and don't
Save
do
your body.
this. Yeah, save your chin for when you're an adult, because you will need to make money off your chin. And you this is something that Hackleman's always talking about, the chin. What's he call it? He calls it the chininity, like your virginity, but it's the chininity. Like, there's only so many times you can crack that, and you can't take it back. So what are your thoughts on all that, man?
Is that geared? Do they have gear on, or is it no gear Muay Thai?
Okay, so there's
'Cause
different
I think
divisions.
that makes a slight difference too.
There's different divisions, and some of them are using. I noticed for the younger kids, I want to say for the elementary school students, so from 1st grade to like 6th grade out here, they were having them wear shin guards and headgear, and yeah, they had more gear. But once they hit junior high and up, that's when I started seeing no shin guards, no shin guard matches, regular matches, and even with the shin guards, I'll tell you what I think about with headgear. But you go ahead and go with what you were going to say.
I'm probably in the same way you're thinking about, like how amateur boxers usually receive more concussions with headgear than without. But that's usually also because they also have the larger gloves. And if you take away those safety gloves and hand wraps, it's usually a lot safer. Like when I kids spar, they're not wrapping their hands; they're putting on gloves just to prevent scrap cutting, and that's usually about it. And the headgear it's more so for the parents than it is for the kids. It's got the full face just so they're not busting their lips as much. But the funny thing is, leading up to this video, I was doing a lot of research and is actually finding out that like skateboarding and bicyclists see more injuries and more head injuries than martial arts. And now most of all the statistics is it's hard to find Kajukenbo stats, but for full contact karate and judo, just riding a bike is going to lead to more injuries than competitive full contact karate. Football and soccer are going to lead to more injuries. So to say that kids shouldn't have a form that they can compete in, so if they so choose, is like saying we shouldn't let kids play any sport because any sport is going to lead to injury. And it's one of those things. Yeah, you only got so many hits. You only got so many hits in life in general. But if a kid's passionate and wants to compete and wants that territory, and the parents are okay with it, and the kid is trained, and I'm a big advocate. Don't throw sheeps to wolves. If the kid's not trained, no, you're not. You don't need to compete. You need to train. You need to learn. But at the point that a kid is competent, right? You can tell when a kid becomes competent with their ability to protect themselves, then it's worth letting them try in a controlled environment. And what we're looking at doing, it's IKF. It's International Kickboxing Federation. We're What we're trying to do with the local gym meeting that we're doing, we're going to try to go off of that, and it's minute and a half rounds, and it's still supposed to be light contact. Like you're supposed to hit, but it's supposed to be without like malicious intent. I think there's going to be risk though. There's always going to be risk, but from what the stats say, it's less than 1% of kids that train, and it says there's 6.5 million kids in America alone practicing martial arts. So
Yeah.
I think it's safer than not. And if you're talking about teaching kids self defense, even in your adult class, right? You can't learn real self defense unless you spar. I can't tell my kid I'm teaching him self defense unless he spars, and that's how I feel about it.
And again, I think what we're talking about is this balance, right? And this is a tricky balance. I've personally fucked up this balance many times. But it's this balance between intensity, being intense, and making them have a real scenario because you're trying to protect them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't let the training be something that is the place where they end up experiencing the one thing that you're trying to keep them from
Injuries,
experiencing.
exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And it's a good thing you mentioned that thing about the headgear, because a lot of people do forget. This is what I've seen with guys with headgear. I've seen this with adults, and I've seen this with kids too. You take off the headgear, and they're very worried. They're super worried because they know that getting punched in the face is gonna hurt, so they end up restraining themselves more. especially
Yep.
if everyone's on the same field of, hey, we're not, I'm not way better than you, you're not way better than me, we're all the same. Coach is right there, or, Sifu, whatever, sensei, whoever is watching this is right there to make sure that nothing happens. And they're scared shitless. Usually the first time they're both,
But rightfully so.
yeah, for good
Rightfully
reason.
so.
Yeah, for good reason. And they really hold back. But you put a
As soon as the
helmet
headgear.
on them. You put a helmet
Yep.
on them, and suddenly they think, "Oh, I can take the hit." That's when you start seeing this stuff happening. And this doesn't just happen with kids. That's just happening with adults
It's
too.
adults,
Like,
everybody.
yeah,
And that even I have these kids do it without headgear, and I tell them like, you're gonna make contact. If you can bop them in the nose, bop them in the nose, but their head shouldn't be jarring back. If you're hitting so hard that you're jarring someone's head, you're moving too fast for sparring. But no, I definitely agree. And it's safer to not have that gear. But more often than not, it's hard to pass that by parents.
oh
So
yeah,
usually the headgear goes on for like big events, usually if they're testing or something. Because I do make my kids spar for testing, but again, testing for us is once every 6 months maybe.
yeah,
So even for the white belt to the second belt, you're going to be training for a while and be pretty confident.
yeah,
If not, don't.
yeah. And then, like, for me, I mean, I have my kids. The cool thing, and then you were mentioning jujitsu. What I really love about grappling and jujitsu, specifically jujitsu, and not judo and wrestling. And it's because the nature of judo and wrestling is the takedown. And I forget. I always hear this quote, and I forgot who originally said it. I hear it thrown around quite a bit. Judo is the art of dropping your opponent, dropping the world on your opponent's head. So, like, the whole idea that the goal is to slam the guy onto the ground. Whenever we have that kind of, even with mats, that's all. They might just grab, simple mathematics: your weight times
Free fall.
free fall onto your head. Now, but what I like about specifically jujitsu, specifically Brazilian jiu-jitsu, is once they have this element in the practice that can also be done as training, and this is why they have lower risk of injury, is you can go pretty hard if the rules are, hey, we're starting from the ground, I'm not going to slam you on your head, we're going to start right here on the ground, and we're going to initiate grappling maybe from a certain position like close guard or side mount, and then from there we can go to complete free, where you're starting on one knee and you start going into these positions, and or we can do very focused sparring where you're just in this one position, you're just in close guard, you're trying to pass close guard, and the other person on the bottom is either trying to sweep or submit you. And go ahead.
But going on that tangent, that is no different than telling the Kyokushin guy not punch in the face.
That's true. That's true.
If you start subtracting any part of it, it's no different than subtracting it from sparring.
Yeah.
And me personally, I've seen more kids get hurt in grappling than sparring. The strikes, because usually it's leg kicks, body shots, knock the wind out of them, or in judo they hit their back and get the wind knocked out of them. But more often than not, it's jujitsu where they get hurt because one kid bends over the wrong way, one kid gets bull rushed, one kid gets just tied up underneath himself, or a kid goes for an arm bar and falls back because he can't control it. I think there's actually more risk in the grappling than the striking, and only for the fact that the worst thing that can happen in striking is the concussion. Usually, especially with kids 6 and 10, like they don't have enough punch power to really do much more damage. But a 6-year-old is heavy enough to accidentally dislocate a shoulder, heavy enough to snap an elbow, heavy enough to tear a ligament when rolling or when pushing and pulling.
And I think that comes down to, again, and so right now I'm not talking about competition. So this kind of goes with what I was saying about the Kyokushin guys too. There's things you can take out of the training that help you later in competition, but that in competition wouldn't work, if this makes any sense. So, like,
Right.
when you start doing positional sparring, and so with my kids, I take this up one notch. My kids don't know how to submit people. They're too young. It's really hard to teach a 7-year-old an effective submission. Like, it's really hard to do it. They'll kind of have the idea of it, but it's really hard for them to catch the concept. It's easier to tell them, hey, you just have to pass this position. So if this guy's in close guard, I just want you to get out of their close guard and get inside mount. Or if the person is sitting on top of you in mount, I want you, the person on top, just to try to stay there as best as you can. and the person on bottom try to get out of that position as best as you can.
Yep.
And with kids, yeah, since they're light, what ends up happening is a lot of scrambling. And if you're watching it, you stop the scramble because that's where the injuries happen, or during the scramble.
Exactly.
Like they'll stand up and start. Now back to what I said earlier, where judo and wrestling has a lot of injuries because, like you said, the bull rush, anything.
Even in a
once two
even
people,
in a ground. Go ahead. Sorry.
Once two people have disengaged from a position and are no longer in a position, and they're clashing to gain a position, that's where injuries happen, and that's where that's where judo, that's where wrestling, everything. That's where a lot
Where
of
the
stuff
headbutts
happens.
happen.
Yeah, that's where the headbutts happen because they're doing this stuff.
Time.
So and again, now we're kind of we've did this. I don't know how many times we've done this already. We're deviating from the actual competition.
Yeah. So going back in competition, if a kid goes to a jiu-jitsu match, there's going to be wild scrambles because they're geared up, they're ready and going. And I think there's more chance at a geared up kid rolling in competition getting hurt than a kid in full gear doing some relatively rough sparring or competition contact, kumite. But that's been my what I've seen so far. Seeing kids roll and then seeing kids spar. Usually they're a lot safer sparring than they are rolling because their body control goes out the window sometimes when they're rolling, whereas they seem to have a little bit at least when they're standing up still.
Yeah, and then
But that could be with the philosophy we're training here.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of grappling happening. I know as an instructor, I learned the hard way that the best way to teach grappling is from the ground up and not from the top down. That is,
Yep.
I don't know how many injuries I've had. I've had even
Takedown.
like just not even competing, not even sparring, just plain old. Here's a double leg takedown. Here's how to sprawl against a double leg takedown, and injured knees, injured ankles, just because they're inexperienced and they're trying to learn. And the bigger the person, especially for the adults, the bigger the guy, the more weight coming in. So the more I had, what I had to do is, okay, wait, these people need to learn, like, I'm going in the wrong direction here. I need to start from the bottom up, not from the top bottom. And that's why, like, again, for the Kajukenbo stuff, if you look at I don't know how your curriculum works, but for us, a lot of the takedowns are a little more based on judo. So you'll grab if they're wearing a t-shirt, you'll grab the t-shirt by the sides. If you're wearing a gi, you can grab the gi. And you can do like a light, slow, controlled sweep for the practice. And then the other person's learning how to break fall. So you're more working on break falls,
Technique
and technique rather than resistance against.
It's the same thing when I teach my kids. Like my kids, they don't learn hip tosses. They're not learning rear suplexes or forward suplexes or double legs that require you to lift the person off the ground. Most of the time they're going over takedowns. I use like a C&E, like collar and elbow. They have to maintain their grips and do takedowns from, because it's really hard to accidentally drop them too hard if you maintain your grips. But when it comes to competition, what is it going to be? Judo, jiu-jitsu, or full contact kickboxing of some sort? And the question is it safe enough? And would people allow kids to do it? I think it's safer than most other sports, but the risk is still there.
Yeah.
Regardless of the.
And again, like this happened. I forgot. I came across an article, and that's probably the one that I'm going to use for the picture. I think it was Psychology. It was Psychology Today a long time ago. It was talking about should kids be participating in MMA, and there was like probably a 10, 11-year-old full mounted on another 10 or 11-year-old beating the shit.
Ground and pound.
It was a ground and pound beating the shit. It looked like an MMA. It was an MMA match. It was an MMA match with two kids. Mm-hmm. And this goes back to my qualms here in Japan watching kids in full contact fighting. Like, I mean, again, if you want to do it, do I think this is where things get kind of weird to
me. So just like I don't know how much amateur MMA you got, but like an amateur MMA around here, you hit the ground and someone punches your glove 6 times, they stop the fight. So I think what it should be is, if we're gonna have kids do that, we need to have like really sport rules for, okay, you're down and they hit your gloves 3 times or hit you 3 times, it's immediately stop. Just make it where there's more risk to the failure. That'd be one way to keep it a little safer.
And it's interesting you're talking about that because I was talking to Renato Bernardino. He's a Kajukenbo guy from Portugal, and he's trying to he's looking at something very similar to what you're looking at as far as like, but we still what you guys are both talking about, and what I've also done in my classes. I think what maybe I'm getting a hint out of this is a lot of Kajukenbo guys are doing this because there is no venue. There is no venue for what we do. The closest thing is MMA.
Yep,
That's the
exactly.
closest thing. The other venues are going to be either, like you said, the more recognized combat sports, like either boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, now jujitsu, but before it was judo, and now jujitsu. So we can participate in these things, but they're not exactly what we're doing.
They're not
And
our
then,
things.
and then what you're also implying, if I'm catching you right, is that if people are okay with kids competing in these things would be just as dangerous as the thing that we're doing would be. You're arguing more dangerous. I'll say just as there's risk is always there, and it's always going to come down to who's controlling it. There's a lot of variables here, but let's just say we have great referees for all 5 of these things. I'm guessing the risk is the same. And if you're willing to be okay with these things,
all 5 of those, why not?
Then why not the 6th, right? Like if you're already and maybe some aren't, right? Maybe some one alternatives already, no, but I'm not okay with those 5
Let
things.
my kid do that.
Therefore, I'm not okay with the 6th thing. Like that might be it.
And stats would say, are you okay with your kid riding a bike? Are you okay with your kid getting on a skateboard? Because if not, that's the same as you saying don't let a kid do some full contact Kajukenbo. World's a dangerous place, but I prefer my kids to experience danger in a safe area or a safe competition than the bathroom stalls where the boys are going to get attacked and beat up. You know, I get real serious with my kids and I have those kinds of conversations with them. One of the reasons we spar and one of the reasons I uh, implore them to try some competition is so that they get that adrenaline rush out, because you're never going to get. It's hard to get that in sparring. It's hard to get that in such a controlled environment. So I'm not telling these kids to go have a Muay Thai career at the age of 7, but dip your toes in that water and make sure you can experience that, so that way you get that feeling, that experience, so that when I tell you this self defense is for violence, you now understand, oh, violence. Because there's a lot of kids, I'd say 99% of people that train martial arts don't know what violence is. Not real violence. Violence in here maybe, but not violence when it really happens. They don't know that fear, that how things change. And I think competition, MMA, full contact, jiu-jitsu competitions is the closest we're going to get to it. But for me, it's hard to tell my kid go to a jiu-jitsu competition when he trains jiu-jitsu half the time that another kid trains jiu-jitsu, because he's predominantly jiu-jitsu. Or when my kid knows that if he's some kid's fighting a bad position, he could just throw a punch to him, as opposed to trying to work loose from that position constantly. And that's where the Kajukenbo is held back in competition, because we're got more feelers out than we have a narrow path like most places will train.
And I think now you're going into a different topic. Is Kajukenbo fit?
Back to Kajukenbo. What is Kajukenbo?
No. I will not. I don't know how many times. If you listen to the podcast lately, every time people say that, I'm not doing that.
You almost have a disclaimer before every episode.
I should say that off camera. We are not doing what is Kajukenbo. So, but I do. So like again, and as you know, working with parents, some parents don't want their kids on a skateboard, right?
Yep.
So some parents want to grab their kid and wrap them in bubble wrap, poke holes in it so they can breathe, make a hole in their face so they can eat.
I'm zero. You mentioned it when you talked about your adult class in one of your episodes, but you discussed how like you're not for hobbyists. I tell the parents the same thing. Hey, if it's not for your kid, it's not for your kid. If your kid doesn't want to get kicked in the stomach when we're doing very light conditioning, doing front snap kicks to each other, and he's going to cry about that, I'm not going to baby him. He's either going to get kicked like every other kid's getting kicked, or the same for him.
Yeah.
There's a McDojo down the road where you can do katas all day. But
this is going down to, we're getting to the what is Kajukenbo, but I'm just this.
But that goes to the competition, because again, do you want your kid to learn self defense? Do you want your kid to be really ready to be able to protect himself? Then I think there's a certain level of competition that needs to be involved with that. Because that competition is the closest thing that kid's going to get to experience in it, and he experience it at least once, so he knows what the hell he's messing with.
And then, so, and I've said this before on another podcast, like, Gracie Baja's slogan is "Jiu-Jitsu for everyone," and if Kajukenbo had a slogan, it would be "Kajukenbo is not for everyone." Like,
Yep.
that's the opposite of that slogan.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely
It just
not.
simply isn't.
Definitely not. So like, we're almost getting to the end of this, but one thing I want to mention that I think is pretty interesting. Hackelman likes to have his kids do sumo practice with helmets on and highly supervised with two coaches watching, so that as one kid starts getting thrown down, they come in and pick him up, right? So that the kid's actually not slamming the ground. And he has very young kids doing this, and he's had really, really good success as far as not having a lot of injuries coming out of his gym. He's and that's a lot of people are surprised by. Like, I had people contact me off, off air and be like, I don't run a hardcore gym like Hackelman, but I have my guys full contact spar all the time. And I'm like, well, to be honest, like, I've gone to Hackelman's gym, I've trained with him, I've really analyzed his program. He does not have that. He talks about this, and if you follow him, he talks about how he used to have the guys beat the shit out of each other, and Liddell used to beat the crap out of each other, and then
Shortens
how
careers.
he had to lean away from that because when he started inviting the general public to come train with him, a guy was like, "This is great. This is real self-defense, but people are gonna get hurt. You're lucky no one's gotten hurt yet, and two, you're gonna get sued. You're gonna have to figure out a way to keep doing what you're doing with
Yep.
keep the intensity without the injury." And
We all got to go to work tomorrow. That's what I always say.
yeah,
Hey, we're doing takedowns, but we all got to go to work tomorrow.
yeah. Or we gotta go to
So,
school or wherever you go.
whatever. Yeah, for the kids and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. And I'm not as experienced as a coach as most people are. I've got about 6 years and 3 years of this particular gym, but I've not had any kids get hurt. And we spar frequently. We roll frequently. We do collar and elbow, which it's basically just judo, but with specific grips, and you have to maintain those grips. Um, and no kid gets hurt. We've had some kids get their air knocked out once in a while, hitting their backs, bad break falls. We've had a bloody nose once, and he giggled about it. And 3 years of kids going at it, and they're not going at it hard, but more, I'd say a lot harder than your local karate studio. And the kids actually, they grow off of it. They grow because they know that they are doing something that other kids aren't doing. They know that those kids and their parents know that their kid is safer because we let them compete with each other, because we let them touch those deeper waters.
And then I'll add, and I don't know if this means I'm for or against kids participating in full contact in fighting, right? I already fucking forgot the title. Fighting in combat sports. But anyway, I'll add to that and say I've been teaching. Oh boy, jeez, a long time. We'll just say over 10 years. We've been teaching for over 10 years. Different programs here in Japan. 10 years solid in Japan, and then even before that, back in the States. We'll just say over 15 years, and I've been teaching kids for 15 years, even coming up in the ranks with my instructor.
Mhm.
I have never seen a child have to go to the doctor from training. Now, the only time I had a kid, and the kid still didn't go to the doctor. Oh, no, you know what? That was not my bad. That wasn't my gym. So one of my guys did get hurt because one of my kids, the mom insisted that, and again, I leave it up to the parents. Consent, liability, that's all up to the parents. I'll strongly recommend against it, but if by all means this is what you want to do, then I'm going to make sure that you don't get hurt. That's
Yeah.
that's going to be my approach to it. So I did have those two kids compete in that full contact Muay Thai kickboxing tournament here in Japan, and I told them they weren't ready. They only trained for a year. It didn't go well, and I told them it wouldn't. It wasn't a surprise that it didn't go well. They did a kickboxing match, did okay, but then when they said they wanted to do they did a full contact kickboxing match, and they didn't get hurt in that match. He lost,
Yeah.
but did not get hurt.
Yeah. And that I'd say that's most
And then
most
when
people
the
that.
Muay Thai one though, again, the one kid, I told him, hey, this guy, and again, remember we talked about who's running the competition. This is the thing. This is the kind of shit that happens when you get involved in this.
Mhm.
You have no control over who's running the competition. I mean, unless you're doing it like what you're about to try to do, perfect, because now you are in charge, right? You're talking about getting a committee and being on a committee. When the committee already exists, then you're just a participant in that. This goes back to your original title: should kid participate? Right? You're a participant. You're no longer in control. So as a coach, I warned them. I don't think you guys are ready. These people are world class. I don't think you should be here. They're not dividing anything by ranks. You shouldn't do it. I kept saying no, 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 and the mom and kids kept saying yes, yes, yes. So against my better advice and judgment, I was like, okay, I'm telling them no, but they're entering anyway. So like if I say no, I have two choices right now. They enter anyway without me being there and get super hurt, or they enter and I supervise and throw in that towel quickly.
Mhm.
And I sat there with the towel and I'm like, as soon as I see him get cracked, I'm throwing in the towel.
Yep.
So like I told him, I told the first kid, I'm like, just keep your hands up. Don't get rocked in the head. If you think this person's way better than you, then your goal is to not get hurt in this match. If you can get them, get them. If you can't, get your hands up, cover your head, nice, and don't worry. You did a great job just stepping in there.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, that kid listened to me and did a great job. That's exactly what happened. They put him up against the previous year's champion. The guy just started cracking on him. He kept his hands up. The referee stopped it immediately.
Good.
I think the fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Because they kept breaking it up. He did it a few times. And then at one point, he did a side kick, bam. I was like, nice. He got him a side kick. Then he got rushed again. His hands up. I was like, all right, you didn't get hurt. Great job. His brother, not so much. His brother ended up catching the guy with an illegal shot to the groin, and they didn't stop the fight. So he was hurt, and I told him, get him. While he's hurt, get him. And he was winning the fight, and then the guy turned the tables on him. And then I told him, put your hands up, put your hands up. And he started going toe to toe, and he got rocked. I'm pretty
How
sure.
old were these guys?
The first one was 13, and the other one was 14.
Teens.
Yeah, they're teens. They're not children. In my eyes, they're children. 13, 14. A little too young to get rocked in the head, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
The youngest one didn't get hurt. The 14-year-old, he got rocked in the head with I believe it was a combination of a knee to the head and then a hook. He went
See,
down.
over here, a lot of the amateur Muay Thai for the kids, there's no knees and no elbows to the head.
Oh, okay.
No knees to the head, no elbows to the head. So they even take that out.
Yeah, no, there was full Muay Thai rules on this one, which I warned them about, which I warned them about, told them and explained to them. But either way, so there's my I guess right there. There's a horror story and there's a good story.
Yeah.
And again, I think this really comes down to the parents, right? What do you want your kid to do? So, like, I guess I'm gonna end this podcast with my question to you. What do you tell a parent when they come in and say they come in the wishy-washy 50-50 camp? I want my kid to be an MMA fighter. Don't want my kid. I'm not sure about my kid competing. What should I do? What do you tell this parent?
I tell them no kid has to compete, and no kid even has to spar. I ask if kid doesn't want to spar that day, okay, you don't have to spar. I'm not going to force you to spar. I'm going to implore it, but you're not going to have to spar. But if you want your kid to actually learn how to defend themselves, they're going to have to practice what we're preaching in here. You know, we're not going to be. You can't just punch air and punch miss the whole class and think you're going to be able to protect yourself. If you care about your kid being able to protect themselves, let them partake, and they will be able to protect themselves if you give me enough time with them. Because that's what happened to me. I started with very traditional martial arts. And when I was 10 years old, I got pieced up by a boxer. And I said, hey, man, I'm going to go learn some boxing. And started learning boxing, started learning wrestling, and just kept going until I knew I could protect myself. And now I'm just trying to siphon that down to the next generation. If I tell a kid I'm teaching him self-defense, I'm not teaching him anything less than what's going to be real self-defense. That's why it's called combative. It's combat. And I'm training them for combat, hopefully defensively. We preach that as well. Got it.
So there's your answer. Any parents who got through this and asked themselves, got through this and are not martial artists, thank you for watching and putting up with the amount of all the things we just threw at you. A lot of information. I do urge you to Google a lot of the stuff we just talked about. If you have no idea what we just said, I do urge you to Google a lot of that stuff. I really appreciate you being on the show, Tim. And to my listeners and to my viewers, thank you for supporting Social Gelo with Angelo. If you like what you saw, again, subscribe. comment, talk about it. Yo, you can have I open discussions up in the comments if y'all want to talk about it, and share it with your friends. If you have if you know anybody that has maybe is asking themselves these kind of questions, share it with them. Let them watch it, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you, brother. Thanks again. And I'll
Thank you,
catch y'all
bud.
next time.